From the New York City area, welcome to the Badass Counseling Show, where the master badass himself, Sven Erlandson, takes you deep and gives balm for the soul, baby.
Hello, fine people. It is great to have you here. You have reached us in our studio at the Badass Counseling Show, and we are delighted that you have chosen to join us. Whether you are checking in from Coeur d'Alene, Idaho, that beautiful lake in Coeur d'Alene, or from Romania, believe it or not, lots of listeners in Romania and around the world, we love to have you here. We really do, and thank you for joining us. I am joined in studio today by my producers, KC, always faithful in the booth and ever running everything behind the scenes, and my partner here, Rob the Rocket. What say ye, Rob?
I had some time today with an aunt and a cousin who I don't see very often, and we got to talking about the fact that I was working on this podcast. They were very interested. I told them what it was. And my cousin looked it up and said, "Oh my God, I already follow him." So wasn't that great?
Can I ask how old your cousin is?
She's got to be in her 40s.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. I love it. I love it. And Rob, then here's my follow-up question. I always try to ask you something to stump you.
All right.
You have a jukebox in your home.
Yes, I do.
know that.
Yes,
I have danced to the tunes on your jukebox with our friends and so forth. What is the most recent record 45, that you added to your jukebox?
I think I may have mentioned this on a previous show, but I got some records from an old friend of mine. He was throwing them away. And there were two Bobby Darin records, Beyond the Sea and Mac the Knife.
Wow.
And I tell you, you've got to be of a certain age to understand this, but they have a certain effect on people, and it's a good one.
And was Bobby Darin the original singer of Mac the Knife?
Well, it was from the Three Penny Opera. He had the big hit, 1960.
But didn't Sinatra sing? Did he sing?
Probably
Sinatra?
At some point, but the single record, the huge hit,
it was Bobby Darin.
It was Bobby Darin.
All right. Well, there it is, folks. A little history about Bobby Darin and how old Rob is. I'm teasing. Don't hit me. I'm teasing. Rob, we've got two really, really interesting stories today. Tell us, if you would, Rob, about Bridget and Taya.
All right, Sven, happy to. Bridget wrote into us and said with the subject line, "My little world fell apart in 2005. In 2005, my little family of 3 was in a religious cult, at that time for 16 years. First, my ex divorced me, admitting he had been with 500 women since the day we met, through 24 years of marriage. During separation, our daughter passed, and the cult had started shunning me and her before her passing because I wouldn't follow what they wanted me to do with her, which was to kick her into the street. I know it's been almost 19 years ago, but I had buried and compartmentalized it for that long. I became pretty ill in January of 2023, and for some reason it all came back to the surface. So now it's like reliving it and researching the night I found her passed in her bedroom of my house. The police report and the coroner report are so confusing, they don't seem to add up. I feel like I let her down, and the guilt of that is heavy." And we also heard from Tanya, whose subject line said, "No self-worth/PTSD." She says, "I've been a first responder since I was a teenager, starting off as a firefighter and paramedic, then moving on to police work after my former fiancé didn't want me to be a firefighter. I was a SWAT negotiator and have seen and dealt with a lot of pain, death, and heartache for over 27 years in the field. I've been sexually abused in the past, which has caused me to have PTSD. Between the abuse and my job, to the point of me, the golden child, making a horrible mistake at work, getting me suspended and possibly criminally charged. I got to such a low point I considered suicide. Reading your book, Sven, and therapy is helping me, but I have so many unresolved issues I'm struggling with healing."
Bridget and Taya, great to have you on the show. Hello.
Hello.
Thank you.
Good to be here.
Great to have you here, Taya and Bridget. Well, we're going to go ahead and dive in, and I'm going to sort of go back and forth between the two of you. I want to start with you, Taya, and I just want to ask you a very simple question that I want to know if it's off limits for me to ask you what the horrible mistake was at work. You said you may be criminal charged, so I realize there may be legal reasons you can't discuss that.
The investigation's done, but not I'm still waiting to see what happens with that. But I changed a date on a piece of paper.
And
And that's considered, I guess, tampering with records.
wow. And you say you got suspended. Did you end up getting your job back after doing that?
So I'm still on paid administrative leave right now. I'm working on going out on a disability because of my PTSD, which led up to that. So that's kind of where I'm at.
Gotcha. I appreciate your clearing that up. Let me ask you then, you had mentioned at the end of your write-up that basically you had said you'd been the golden child, presumably your whole life and so forth, and then you came to such a low point that you considered suicide. Just out of curiosity, if you were going to kill yourself, how would you do it?
I took a rope into the woods with me.
Wow. Okay. And did you actually engage the act?
No, because last minute I turned my GPS stuff back on that I'd shut off, and because I was going to send a text to a friend of mine, and I saw a whole bunch of messages from people, which I ended up reaching out to them, and so no, that's...
And a whole bunch of text messages, hey, we're going for pizza, or text messages,
No.
Did they have a theme? Had you told them, hey, I'm going to kill myself, or what?
No, so I had talked to a guy I'd worked with, had called me while I was on my way there, and he could tell by my voice or how I was that something wasn't right, because he's also a police officer. And I guess he reached out to my captain, and then my captains tried to ping my phone, but I knew better. I knew to shut all that stuff off. So he was trying to find out where I was, and then all these messages were in there, and because they weren't allowed to reach out to me when I got suspended.
Right.
So I felt like everybody had abandoned me and left me.
And so then you got clear confirmation they hadn't all abandoned you and they still loved you and cared.
Yes.
Just out of curiosity, when you were at the point of suicide, what percent, and it may be zero, this may have never entered the equation of your suicide or your life at all, okay? And I accept that. I just want to know, I'm going to ask you a question. Has self-hate ever been part of the equation of your life?
I think it's more making sure that I am up to the standards that I need to be, more so than hate.
Oh, up to standards. Okay. So then presumably if you're at the point of wanting to kill yourself, was it because you were feeling so alone, or was it because you feel like I'm just a failure, I haven't hit my standards, or the shame of the horrible mistake? What fundamentally, if I made you boil it down to one sentence or less, what fundamentally was the reason that you wanted to kill yourself?
That night at 2 a.m, I had talked to someone who said this was going criminal. And I think that feeling of that's not me, and now my whole world was just falling apart. I felt like I was the financial person for my family, and it just...
And so what was underneath all of those facts, all of that amalgam of things coming together, boil it down to half a sentence. What fundamentally did it all boil down to? I'd let everyone down, or I'm a failure, or I'm such a fucking loser, or what?
Failure or not worthy, not worth... Yeah.
Okay.
I'd say a failure or not worthy.
Okay. Failure, not worthy. All right. I want to just move right over. I'm going to come right back to you. Okay. Bridget, I want to ask you a question.
Okay.
You have experienced what many people say is the worst thing anyone can ever experience. All right. Not that anybody's, keeping score, but you lost a child. You lost a child.
Yes.
How old were you when you lost a child? Are you comfortable answering that? And if not, it's okay.
I was 48.
You were 48 when you lost a child. And how old was your daughter when she passed?
She just turned 20.
20. All right. And let me ask you, as long as we're on the topic of suicide, has that ever been part of the equation of your life?
I actually, 5 years after that, I voluntarily committed myself 3 times in 1 year.
Because you were thinking about suicide or close to it? Is that why?
I don't think I actually thought it through. I just couldn't handle it anymore.
And what ultimately was at the root of not, and I applaud you for checking yourself in. Total, smart, brilliant. You were overcome by all your emotions, but not so much so that you couldn't see that, shit, I need to get help and so forth. So I applaud you for that. Let me ask you, what was the biggest feeling? Obviously, it was a big, mangled, tangled mess of feelings, but what was the biggest feeling that overwhelmed you so that caused you to want to check yourself in?
I just couldn't handle that. I hadn't been there for my daughter.
Give me a feeling word. Give me a feeling word that in not being there for my daughter, I felt above all else. What was that?
Very
Boom,
guilty.
right on. Guilt. That
Just
what?
totally guilty.
And then put into sentence what you felt most guilty for. Either what you did or what you didn't do. If you were to distill it down to a sentence, what does it really boil down to that you feel the most guilt over?
I feel like she died from an accidental overdose. I feel like that we had laid too much emotions on her, and she took the easy way out. So I felt, not the easy way, but she chose to go that direction. So I was feeling really heavy and just emotionally spent. I mean, I was just, between all three things happened at one time, I was just totally spent.
And that's, I can't even imagine what it's like to deal with all of that. You being spent, hey, wow, of course you were. Who wouldn't be?
Yeah.
I do want to ask you something very interesting, though. Something that just sort of jumped out that I got to ask. And maybe there's nothing there, but I got to ask. You made the comment and then corrected yourself. You made the comment she took the easy way out. Now, wait. Now what I want to ask about isn't about the easy way out. I want to ask what that groan was right there. That, what was that? What were you feeling in that moment, just 80 seconds ago, when you groaned like that? What was going on inside of you?
Well, because I said the easy way out, and I guess it's like,
What were you feeling? What were you feeling when I meant shame? Okay, let me ask you this though. And this is the ugly part. And maybe there's nothing to it, and it's an honest question. All right, dumb question, but an honest question. It's simply this: does a part of, because easy way out implies almost I'm mad at the person or I'm disappointed in the person.
Oh, yeah.
Are you mad at her for?
I was really pissed. Yeah.
You're pissed at her.
Yeah, I was. Yeah.
And yet you didn't say that sentence. She took the easy way out. You didn't say that all those years ago. I didn't hear you say it then. I heard you say it just about a minute and a half ago or 2 minutes ago. So it almost implies you're still mad at her.
Probably, yeah.
And
probably.
and if you were to put into one sentence what you're most mad at her for, what is it?
I have no future with her. There's no future anymore.
So she robbed you.
She robbed all of us. Yeah.
Sure.
Her presence. Yeah.
Of course.
Yeah.
And just out of curiosity, at least at the moment, what is this? Which is bigger for you? You're pissed at her or your guilt over the feelings that you feel regarding her? And
Oh, gosh. Probably the guilt.
why did you hesitate? Why was that a hard question?
Because
To me, I would think, God, I'd feel so horrible and so on and so forth. But you're so honest. You're so honest in answering that question. And by the mere fact that you had to pause, that implies how much anger you actually have at her, that it almost is a 50-50, almost equals the amount of guilt you feel.
50-50.
Wow, you got a lot of anger in you towards your daughter.
Well, I hate to really say who it's really toward.
And yet, well, wait a minute. Say who it's really toward. I'm just curious. Say it. Who is
My ex.
towards your ex? And yet, what does it say that your anger at your ex came out when we're talking about your daughter? So you're taking your anger at your ex out on your daughter, God rest her soul. Isn't that interesting?
Well, because I think he put us in that situation.
But you're blaming her. You're saying, I'm pissed at her. We're talking about her. And then you say, I hate to say who I'm really pissed at. And it's like, whoa, we're talking about your daughter. And then, so it's almost, do you see what I'm saying? That the anger at your ex is being sort of taken out on the memory of your daughter? Or is that, am I contorting it? Is that not it?
Okay, he's at the head. He kind of like trickled down to all of us.
Right. And okay. And yet still potentially taking anger at him out on her. Just one last question before I flip back over to Taya. one last question, and just out of curiosity, when she was alive, did you take your anger at him out on her?
Oh, no.
And yet you're doing it now when she's dead?
Well, because I feel like she just kind of robbed us of her presence and the future and grandchildren, and just, she was my only child. It took 4 years to conceive her, and just, the whole thing's a heartache.
No, I can't even imagine.
No.
So Taya, I want to go over to you here. You had said that at the peak you felt failure and not worthy, and that's what caused you to want to kill yourself.
So I don't make mistakes. You ask anyone at work, I don't make mistakes. I don't screw up. I don't do something unless I know I'm going to be really good at it. That's been my whole life.
I don't do stuff unless I know I'm going to be really good at it. So you must have some serious fucking ability to have premonitions, to know in advance that you're going to be good at something. So fundamentally, wait a minute. Fundamentally, what you're saying then is you've been playing it safe your whole life.
Oh, I'm sure.
I mean, think about it. If I'm only going to attempt things that I know I can, and you have a remarkable resume, the things you've done. So on one hand, it's like, what the fuck is Sven talking about? Playing it safe. Look at all she's done. But no, you just said, I only do things that I know I can succeed at, which means you've been living in fucking terror your whole life.
100%.
Terror of not succeeding, terror of failing, terror of making a mistake. I don't make mistakes. What would happen when you were a kid and you made a mistake? What's the giggle?
So
wait. What's the giggle right there? What's
the giggle is, so I worked for polo players, and we traveled since I was young. And young, I say I started when I was like 14. When I was 16, I was working for a polo player that brought a pro in, and I was holding a horse one time he was trying to clip it, and he used to dip the clippers in diesel fuel and cans of diesel fuel, and the horse knocked one of the cans over, and he took the other can and threw the diesel fuel on me.
Wow.
So I've had throughout my life heavy consequences. And one of my therapists said, well, you didn't make a mistake. You didn't do anything. And I was like, and I guess.
Yeah, that's not the question I want to ask. Right. Focusing on the polo players, that's significant. And of course, there were high consequences. You got diesel fuel poured on you. But come on. Yeah. You don't make mistakes, and I don't start things unless I know I can succeed at them. I got to ask this question. Wasn't that message of you're going to fucking eat shit if you fuck up, wasn't it there long before you met polo players?
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah.
Well, no, I'm sure. I'm asking you, what would happen in your home if you made a mistake or if you fucked up? I mean, you were the golden child.
I was. So I don't know, because I've been not making a mistake, I feel like, for so long that I couldn't even tell you.
Understood. Why would you have been not making a mistake for so long? What would the messaging have been that golden child got? And I get so many people on this show and in my practice who are on the ass end of the golden child, right? They were the sibling of the golden child.
And my siblings would be that.
Oh,
yes.
Yeah. And a lot of people don't understand. How does the golden child have it bad? Why don't you tell us right now the amount of pressure you felt, I don't know, when you were 7 or 5, or what age did the pressure start, Taya?
Well, I'm young, because I always had to, like, my mom was big into church, and my sisters kind of didn't get involved, and she had me involved, and I did anything she said. My dad was a volunteer firefighter. I think that's why I got into that, so I could get attention from them.
Why were you intent on doing everything she said? What would happen if you didn't?
I'd probably not get any attention from any of them. I just felt like I ignored, like I wasn't there, like nothing.
Okay. And just out of curiosity, if you got a message, either explicit or implicit, if you got a message about you or about who you were, do you remember any messages you got in childhood that 6-year-old or that 4-year-old or 8-year-old thought about themselves? What was the message you thought about yourself at that age?
I would say that I'm not
language.
worth
In
I'm
6-year-old
not
language.
worth anybody's time.
That's not 6-year-old language.
That's 6-year-old language.
What would a 6-year-old say? Put it in, just do your best. What did the 6-year-old think of herself?
I guess that I wasn't worth their time. Like they just didn't pay attention to me.
So you're seeing them not paying attention to you, and I wasn't worth their time. And so is it reasonable to assume then that's when the performance started?
Oh, I'm sure. Yes. Yeah.
I mean, isn't
absolutely.
that reason? Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Definitely.
So I want to flip over to you, Bridget. You mentioned this religious cult. I won't ask you what the cult name was. I don't need to out you or anything like that. But I'm just curious, what fundamentally was the reason that you joined the religious cult? And how old were you when you did? I
was 32.
And the fundamental reason that you chose joined a religious cult was what?
It's going to sound really weird. I was already a Christian beforehand, but I looked out and I was like, why would anybody want to be a Christian if they looked at me? Because I was doing the exact same thing as everybody else was doing. Mm-hmm. So when I met this cult, it was at the state fair, and they looked different, they acted different. So I was like, oh, this is interesting. So that was the start.
And so you wanted something more than your average Christianity. You wanted something special. You wanted something bigger and better. Is accurate or inaccurate?
Not quite that. I wanted something that somebody would look at me and say, gosh, she was a Christian. Not based on my behavior. Yeah.
Not based on your behavior. I thought you wanted...
Well, including my behavior.
And because of your... Okay. And you wanted someone to look at you, to see you. Just out of curiosity, when you were growing up, were you seen?
Well, that's interesting too. No, I probably grew up thinking I wasn't loved.
And why? How did you get the message you weren't loved?
Because I was never told or hugged or cuddled. I mean, I remember thinking that I did not feel loved.
Didn't feel loved. And just out of curiosity, was there any sort of, did you ever, in your life, have you ever hated yourself?
Oh, gosh.
And maybe not, but I was just wondering, because some people would say, well, if you didn't feel loved, you must have hated yourself, but it's not necessarily the same. So I'm just curious for you.
I don't think I felt that I hated myself. No.
And you felt what then towards yourself?
Ambivalent. Nothing.
Okay, you felt ambivalent, felt nothing. And there were no positive messages then confirming your worth. No I love yous or attaboys or anything like that. So then let me ask you, was there anything you could do to get mom and dad's attention or praise? Because we heard with Taya, she learned very early, oh shit, if I perform, if I start hitting my numbers, hitting my quotas, I get some praise. And then she went to the head of the pack, became the golden child. Was there anything you could do to get the praise?
No. It was pretty black and white, yeah.
So it's hopeless. There's nothing I can do to get love. And does a person check out of life then, or what do you do then?
I am really good about not feeling.
Oh, you shut off all the feelings?
Yeah.
Wow.
That's why it took me 19 years to deal with this stuff.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. We are going to come right back to both of these stories right after the short break.
So I was telling a buddy of mine how he seems happier. He told me about the book that changed his life. So I bit. I went to the Badass Counseling website and downloaded There's a Hole in My Love Cup audiobook. I started listening to it on my commute home from work, and holy cow, it was a Louisville slugger to the face. I literally sat in my car in the driveway night after night, listening through to the end of a chapter or doing the journaling exercises. My wife started to see changes. I started to change a lot. My default response stopped always being anger. Now I manage a team of salespeople, and I changed as a leader. I was listening more, not always just reacting. When their numbers started going up seemingly out of nowhere, I knew what the reason was. There's a Hole in My Love Cup is now required listening for any person on my sales team or working for me, and I gladly buy it for them. You gotta listen to this book.
This show provides soul counseling intended to entertain and inform, and is not medical advice. Now, back to the badass.
We are back with Bridget and Taya. And Taya, I'm going to ask you a question, just 1 second, but I want to finish one thought that I had with Bridget, and it's simply this. Bridget, I'm just curious. You had made the comment when you were talking about your daughter. You had said she robbed us of her presence and of grandkids and so forth, and now I have no one. I hate to ask it, and it's an honest question. So you can tell me, no, it's nothing, or tell me to go fuck a duck, whatever. But let me ask you, what % do you feel alone in the world right now?
Oh gosh, pretty much.
Okay.
I mean, I'm remarried.
What's that?
But pretty much, I'm remarried.
Okay, but you pretty much feel.
Pretty much.
Give me a percentage.
Probably 80.
Okay, and just out of curiosity, when you say she robbed us of her presence and of grandkids and so forth, forgive me, it sounds kind of selfish a little bit.
Yeah.
I mean, because you mentioned the anger earlier, and she took the easy way out, and I'm alone, and she robbed me of her presence, she robbed me of grandkids, and I'm alone, and I got no one or whatever, even though I'm married. It's almost like the child existed to meet the parents' needs, or not accurate.
Yeah, I don't think that's totally accurate. I mean, I love
maybe what's that? I'm sorry.
I loved being a mom.
Oh, no doubt about it. No doubt about it.
Yeah.
But just out of curiosity, what % if at all, and maybe it's 0, what % do you think you were dependent upon your daughter to meet your needs? Because you were someone who never got affection, never got attention, never got the I love yous growing up. And let's be honest, for those of us who have kids or have had kids, it's like they have those in abundance. There's no shortage of those. To what degree did your daughter maybe almost even become a little bit of an addiction for you? I mean, it's addicting. Child's love is addicting.
Maybe somewhat. I never thought about that. But I mean, we had fun.
For sure.
Fun. Yeah.
Oh, and trust me, a kid loves nothing more than to give love to the parent and get the love in return. For sure. I was just curious what that.
I never thought about it.
Yeah, I was just curious because a child involved in drugs to the point of either accidentally overdosing or maybe suicide. You said, the confusing reports, the coroner and stuff, maybe it was suicide, whatever. That child likely felt a lot of pressure and obviously hatred from your church and so forth. And by the way, God bless you for standing up for your daughter to the church. Fuck them. Don't tell me to leave my daughter. I respect you for that. It makes you wonder if she felt pressure. And think about it, any parent would have unmet needs and so forth, and it'd be very easy to get those from the child.
Yeah. She was really struggling with our separation very much.
Oh, I'm sure.
Yeah.
No doubt about it. And the fact that her church didn't like her.
Right.
Taya, I want to ask you this question. It was very interesting earlier, Taya, when I was asking you things about your childhood. It was almost as though you drew a blank. I never really thought about it before. It was just interesting.
It's weird with my childhood because I had my grandparents and my parents living with us, but I don't remember much of my parents being there, which is super weird because they were, but I don't really remember. I remember my grandparents being there, but my dad traveled and my mom, I don't know what she was doing. I don't know where she was.
Well, let me ask this question.
Working, I'm guessing.
Okay, let me ask you, don't you find it a little bit interesting that a daughter doesn't know if her own mother had a job?
I know she did for a while, but then she didn't. And the time frame is kind of goofy in my mind. So my childhood too, we lived
Were you the oldest?
Yes.
And how old was your mother when you were born?
Young, like 19 or 19, 20-ish, something. She was young.
Was it a planned pregnancy?
Not sure.
What do you mean?
I don't know. I don't know if I was or not. I mean, she was married. She married young.
Okay, so she was married.
So she was married, and then she had I have 2 twin sisters that are 2 years younger than I am.
And your mother's gone a lot. Dad's traveling a lot for work. And mom's gone a lot, and you really have no fucking clue, and you don't remember a lot of your parents being in your life from childhood. You're being raised by grandma and grandpa. God bless grandma and grandpa. Were you getting love from grandma and grandpa?
I think the best they could. My grandpa didn't speak English. My grandma spoke broken English, and she would always be like, get out of the house and go play, and we'd have to go outside until it was basically dinner time. Then we'd come back in. So.
Oh, wow. So it's not like, gee, you had loving grandparents who raised you and, I love being grandma's hugs and they just gave so much love. It was almost like you're getting a double message from parents and from grandparents that nobody really wants you around or has time for you.
Yeah, it was like, that's exactly it. I felt alone. And then when I tried to, like, my mom was a horrible listener. When I tried to talk to her, a lot of times she was like paying attention to something else and it would piss me off. Because I'm like, you're not even listening to me.
And is your mother alive today?
She is.
Does your mother listen to you today?
No, she thinks she does, but she doesn't.
And just out of curiosity, let me ask this question. Does your mother believe that she was a good mother?
Oh, I'm sure she does.
Ah, okay. And just out of curiosity, if you were to be totally honest, and from your perspective as the child of your mother and your father, etc., what percent was your mom a good mom and what percent was your mom a bad mom?
I'd say 40, 60.
40 good, 60 bad.
Yeah.
Just out of curiosity, when you're in your work or in your everyday life or meeting someone new at a party or with your friends, generally speaking, when you're interacting with people, do you tend to give people the benefit of the doubt and be overly hard on yourself? Or do you tend to be overly hard on people and give yourself benefit? Okay, so you tend to give people the benefit of the doubt and so forth? Generally?
I think so. I think, yes.
Okay, just out of curiosity, is it possible that 40% mom was a good mom is you partly giving her the benefit of the doubt? Is it possible?
Oh, sure.
Okay.
Yeah, no, it is.
So if we were to drill, it is. You're saying it definitively. So then let me ask you this question. If you were to actually try to be fully accurate and not be fucking namaste today, what would you say is the percentage that your mom was a good mom and your mom was a bad mom? What are the two percentages?
Gosh, I just feel like she wasn't there. So I don't.
So what? Is that a mark of a good parent or a bad parent?
No, a bad parent.
Okay. What, as you see it from your perspective, and no one else can answer this question for you. Doesn't matter what other people's experiences are. It matters what your experience was. And looking back, as I look back on it, well, let me ask you this. Do you have any children of your own?
I do, too.
Okay. Oh, let me ask you this question. Well, finish the question then. So if you were to assess it then, what percent was she a good parent?
I'd have to go, I guess I would go lower, like 20%, because she was very much into whatever the perception was of the family. Our family was perfect.
Okay.
And
you wonder why you've been the golden child your entire fucking life?
Yeah.
Because whether it was ever explicitly stated or not, the expectation was you better fucking make me look good.
Oh, 100%.
Okay.
Even today.
What percent of your, asking a totally different question, what percent, well, just out of curiosity, quickly as an aside, what percent was your dad a good parent? What percent was your dad a bad parent? Be honest.
See, he wasn't there either, but he at least would listen to me if I talked to him.
Okay.
So he would be higher than her.
What percentage?
Even though he was there less.
You're taking all
say
things
50-50.
But hold on, just so we're clear, you've been to school. You wouldn't be able to do all the things that you've done unless you'd had some schooling. So, which means you've taken tests. You and I both know that sometimes when you take a test, wait. There are true-false questions at the beginning. Each of the true-false questions worth 2 points. Then there are multiple choice questions. Each of them is worth 5 points. And then there are like 3 essays at the end that are worth like 50 points each. So some things are weighted differently. All right?
Yes.
So in your value system, what percent was dad a good parent and what percent was dad a bad parent? Knowing that some things for you are more important than other things.
50-50, I'd say.
All
with
right.
him.
Then let me ask you this question. What percent of your, totally different question, what percent of your mom's parenting did you deliberately use in the parenting of your own children?
10%.
And what about, what percent of dad's parenting did you deliberately use in the parenting of your own children?
Oh, I'd probably say 40.
Okay. Isn't it fascinating that you say your mom was 20% a good parent, yet you only used 10% of her parenting? What happened to the other 10%? If she was so fucking good that she was 20% a good parent, why wouldn't she use 20% of her parenting? And to the point on dad, if dad was 50% a good parent, why the fuck didn't she use the full 50%? Use 40%. So
because I think it hurt so much that they made me feel invisible and they weren't there that I refused to do that to my children. That's the point.
That's like an earmark of bad parenting.
Yeah.
So in other words, the fact that you're not using their parenting indicates that was bad. But if it was good, you would have used it. Isn't that reasonable?
Yeah. No, absolutely. It's
and
reasonable,
especially since children, even as adults, model or parrot what their parents modeled for them. So your mom was roughly 10% a good parent and your dad was 40%. If one of mom's primary drivers was image, what was dad's primary driver?
I think it was more providing for us.
And what was
I think that's why he was gone.
And if there was an expectation or a message you got from dad about what was expected of you, whether it was explicit or implicit, what was the fundamental thing that was expected of you?
Work. I think work ethic.
Work ethic, right. And he certainly modeled that. So the two messages you got were basically look good, image matters, and work your fucking ass off. Hey, look at you. I'm a SWAT negotiator and I 27 years in the field and look at all the things that I've done. That's right. You work hard and goddamn impressive resume. You are impressive and you work your ass off. You have been a good girl your whole life. But the real question is, have you ever, even one moment of your life, been who you really are?
Oh, no. I said, it's in your book, you talked about where your daughter was outside and you started like spinning around in her bare feet. And
twirling.
Yes, twirling. And when you ever felt like that, where you were like that true child, and I think, or when you lost that, I think was your question. And I've thought about that. And I think it was when I was like 5 years old. It's been that long.
And one more question before I go back over to Bridget. Why 5? Why not 3? Why not 9? Why 5 years old that you stopped twirling, you stopped being your glowing, effervescent 5-year-old self, and you started to become whatever you needed to become to get the attention and love that you weren't getting? Why 5?
So when I was 5, something happened in my neighbor's basement behind the couch, some sexual weird something. And it's weird because it came back up to me when I was journaling from your book. And I thought, I was like, did I make that up? But then I remember that family visited us when we moved. And the kid that was there, that was about my age, that was, I don't know if there was another adult there because I don't remember all this. I remember coming up and saying, do you remember that stuff happening? I was like, oh my God, this actually something happened. And my mom, I remember her saying at that age, I started hiding in closets and wouldn't come out of the closets.
Wow. And so,
and I don't know though.
Well, just out of curiosity, just as a follow-up, was the person who confirmed the message the person who did the sexual whatever behind the sofa to you? Or that person
was with me.
Was with you.
And I don't know if there was an adult that was making us do stuff, or I don't know.
Fair, let me ask.
I'll be honest with you. I have no idea.
Well, let me ask you this question. Dumb question, honest question though. Was it an adult? You just said, I don't know if it was an adult or what. And I'm asking you.
No.
In the faintest recesses and clouds and vapors of... Hold on.
Okay.
Hold on. You said a minute ago, I had thoughts, but I didn't know if it was real. Okay. Until then, the memory and the person confirming it. So what I'm asking, are there some just distant thoughts inside of you that, is it even real? I don't even know. Are there any sort of distant whispers or vapors of a thought of something? Is there anything there?
I mean, he had an older brother that was much older, and I remember him being around us. So, but that's the only, I don't know.
Fair enough. I'm going to give you a breather there, Taya. I put you through the ringer there briefly. Bridget, let me ask you a question. I was asking you a sequence of questions about, I was putting the heat on you about, potentially your daughter, feeling pressure to meet your needs and so on and so forth. That had to have been hard to hear and so forth. Let me ask you this question. If you're, as best you're able, and I know you admitted, and that was a really interesting effort, admission that you've been sort of stuffing down your feelings your whole life. But as I was asking you those questions, and then you had a minute to yourself while I was talking to Taya there, what are you feeling inside of yourself right now? Give me a feeling word.
Feeling heavy.
And why are you feeling heavy? What's triggering the feelings of heaviness?
I think that I hadn't really thought about it being selfish and that I put a lot of pressure on her. But that could be very true.
Well, only you would know. We can't ask her, unfortunately. Let me ask you, when did your daughter's problems start acting out? I mean, she's doing drugs we know she died when she was 20, so we know she's using drugs by 20. When did she start to, for lack of a better word, act out?
When she was like 17, I noticed not personality. She changed, but I thought it was just like teenage stuff, really. But I didn't know, but during the investigation, they found prescription medicine in her room for bipolar. I didn't know she was bipolar. Yeah.
And you didn't know she was bipolar. Okay. And just out of curiosity,
No.
were you and your ex still together at that point at 17? When she was 17? No.
Oh, at 17.
When she was 17?
Yes, at 18, probably 18 going into 19 is when he came out with his revelation.
Got it. And just so curiosity, so at 17, she changed. And what was the single biggest thing that you noticed in her change?
She wasn't as outgoing as she used to be.
Not as outgoing.
Yeah.
And you chalked it up to normal teen stuff, which for some teens, that can happen. That's a logical thing to think. It is interesting, though, that your daughter was bipolar and you didn't know. Why would a daughter not tell her mother that she's bipolar? Did to the best of your knowledge, did your ex ever know?
Probably not. She did not. They did not have a good relationship.
Okay. And so why do you think your daughter never told you that she was having psychological issues, medical issues, that she was struggling? Why do you think that was?
I did know. I did know eventually because she started cutting.
No, eventually. I thought, wait a minute, I misunderstood. I thought you didn't know until you saw it in the coroner's report.
I did not know she was bipolar.
Right, and that's all I'm asking. I guess I should have been more clear. Sorry about that. Why do you think it is that she didn't discuss that with you?
Because she was withdrawing from everything. Yeah.
Why would she?
She was living with me, but she was withdrawing. Yeah.
Any thoughts on why she would withdraw from her mother?
She was withdrawing from everybody. It was just kind of like a different person.
And had you guys been close her whole life?
Yeah.
Yeah, you sort of gave that impression. So she's even withdrawing from you. What do you think was causing something so radical as to withdraw from not only everyone, but the person she was, one of the people she was closest to, her own mother? It had to have been pretty big.
It was. I think I know.
What do you think it was?
I think she'd been sexually abused.
You do. And what leads you to say that? And who do you think sexually abused your daughter?
Somebody in the family. When she was 12, I don't know how much detail to go into without giving it all away.
Well, when she was, what do you think she was sexually abused when she was 12 or when she was 17 or what?
I think at a younger age, yeah.
Why do you think she didn't withdraw then? Because very often, as we literally just heard from Taya, that there was a direct correlation. Did I hear you correctly on that, Taya, time-wise, between when the event occurred and then she changed from twirling to not twirling? Did I get that accurate, Taya? Okay.
Yes.
Okay. So why if she was sexually abused earlier, very often the child changes like that. Very often a parent can see, or someone who knows the child well can see the change almost instantly. Now, I'm not saying always, but very often. Yeah. And so what makes you think she was sexually abused earlier?
My ex's stepbrothers accused him of sexually abusing my daughter.
And how old was your daughter at the time?
About 12. But she said no.
She said, no, it didn't happen. Okay. And then what happens?
It kind of got brushed under the bushel or whatever.
And when you discussed it with your daughter, what did she say to you?
She said it didn't happen either, but she kind of had, I thought, just a normal sexual curiosity.
At age 12?
But
okay.
Yeah, well, just questions.
Okay,
just questions.
And interests. Okay, fair.
Yeah.
Fair.
Yeah, but when I look back at it, I'm wondering,
Did you discuss this with your daughter? Never discuss this with your daughter?
I don't remember. I think we did, but I don't really remember. Gosh, it was so long ago.
So your daughter would have been, today, if she were alive, she would be about how old?
39.
39.
November, yeah, almost 39.
39. So that means she was born in roughly the mid 80s, right? In 85-ish. So by the time she's 12 and potentially sexually molested, you even said, I think my daughter was sexually abused. You said earlier. It would have been 1997. So we're not talking about the 1940s anymore, where, where stuff was, but it would have been the mid 90s. And the single, and Oprah had been on TV by then. Phil Donahue had been on, Sally Jesse,
being in the cult, we didn't watch TV.
Right. But you didn't get into the cult until you were 32. So we already...
She was 12. We've been in it 6 years.
Right.
Yeah.
But I guess the only point I'm making is that in American culture at the time, everybody knew that pretty much the single worst crime on God's green earth is sexually molesting a child. And it's just interesting that you literally never had the conversation with your daughter.
I guess because she said no, he said no. I guess we just dropped it.
Taya, I have to ask, thoughts?
So I was raped when I was 17 later on by another person, and held in a hotel room against my will for hours, afraid this guy was going to come and kill me. It was a whole thing. And then my boss, who was only 6 months older than me, came back in at like lunchtime, and I went up to him, and I remember going up to him freaking out and saying, oh my gosh, this is what happened and whatnot. And I remember him looking me straight in the eyes because I wanted to talk to somebody about it, and looking at me and saying, don't you say a word, that man's got a family. And I never said a word, but I wanted to talk to somebody about it. I just needed somebody who was going to listen. And after that, I never told anybody. My mother and my family to this day doesn't know. The only time I had to bring it up was when I became a police officer. I had a lie detector test, and they asked me that question, and that's the first time I said it out loud.
How did it feel to say it out loud?
Horrible. I was like almost panic attack.
Because
it was horrible, and I'd never been able to talk to anyone about it, because when I did, they told me to not talk about it.
And so the fear was what, do you think? That if I say this, what?
I think it was perception.
And you feared being perceived as what?
As broken, I think. Because I think I don't know if my mother, how she would have handled it.
Oh. And so it's safe to say to this day, is your mother alive, by the way?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Safe to say to this day, she still doesn't know that you were raped.
Oh, has no idea. Wow. Nope.
And when you say, I don't know how she would handle it, I have to ask, how do you think she would handle it? In knowing that you know her as well or better than anyone.
I think she would have told me to keep it to myself too. And not say anything, not talk about it.
She would tell you to keep it to yourself and not talk about it. I got that. And so what's the underlying message being conveyed to the young woman? Keep it to yourself and don't talk about it. What is the underlying message being conveyed to the child?
That what happened to you doesn't matter.
That's right. What does matter
more?
From your mother's perspective, what is the interest? What does she gain by you not talking about it?
The perception of her family's perfect.
Bingo. So she chose her own image over protecting her daughter's mental health. Well,
even to this day, she knows. I didn't tell her about any of the criminal stuff, but she knows that I might be going out on disability.
Yeah.
And she said, I'm not telling anybody that. She goes, I'm going to tell them you had an early retirement.
Okay. I got to ask.
And that's now.
So you are how old, may I ask, Taya?
46.
So you're 46. And presumably you still are in conversation with your mother, et cetera.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yep.
And you say that very lightly. Yeah, like no big deal.
Oh, I keep it very. I've been trying to keep myself separated more.
Why do you still have a relationship with your mother? And I'm not saying you shouldn't. I'm just curious that if someone basically conveys to a daughter her entire life, you exist to make my image look good, to the point of when you are raped, even though I am a woman, this is your mother speaking, even though I am a woman and either know or can imagine what it must feel like to be raped, I want you to keep it quiet so that my image will be protected. So you had that message conveyed to you. And at 5, you had no one you could talk about, you couldn't talk about, and you were also expected to perform. So despite all of this, oh yeah, I have a nice relationship. We have a relationship. Help me understand. What is it you're still wanting from your mother?
Oh, I'm sure approval.
Well, I'm asking you. I want to know what the actual answer is.
It would have to be. I mean, I don't think I care as much as I used to. I think I'm kind of doing it for my sisters because we've always done families. It's just what we've always done. Mm-hmm. So I think that's kind of more of it than anything. I have distanced myself, and I've been a little more. I've set a little bit more boundaries. I'll still go do stuff and have conversations, but I'm not I don't try to have deep conversations with her because I know it's a waste of my time.
And so what do you think it is that you are still wanting from your mother? What ultimately, if there were one sentence that you could hear from your mother, what is the one sentence you most would love to hear from your mother? Or is it something else? But let's start with a sentence.
I think I want to be seen. And I just feel like I've never been listened to or heard or seen from her.
And how would that seen, heard be conveyed to you?
By listening, but I don't think she can.
Wait.
I don't know.
Wait. Just out of curiosity, does your mother have friends?
Some, yeah. Not a ton.
Is your mother still married to your father?
Yes.
Oh. And in that relationship, are his emotional needs met to the best of your knowledge?
Oh, I'm sure not.
Okay.
They fight all the time.
Okay.
But they've always been that way.
I see. And so potentially that you're still wanting the approval of your mother, and I do the family stuff more for my sisters than anyone. Let me ask you, and I'm not saying you should do it, what do you most want to do regarding your mother?
I think distance myself, which is what I've kind of started to do. I mean, I used to talk to her every day, and I maybe talk to her once a month.
And what's the fear in distancing yourself even more? Do you desire to distance yourself more?
I think I've been good. I think I've done pretty well setting my boundaries.
I'm not disputing that. Okay. I'm not disputing that. I'm asking you the question, do you desire to distance yourself more? And it's okay to say no. And it's okay to say yes. I'm just curious what the answer is.
Yeah, except for maybe like on holidays.
And so why aren't you distancing yourself more?
I think she's going to think less of me, which I don't know why I care, but.
There you go. So you've just articulated something you know you want, and it's to be distant from her. And yet you can't do what you want to do because you fear her thinking ill of you, thinking less of you. Your mother fucking owns you.
Yes.
It's in
my journaling.
Is it?
There's a bunch of that.
And, and give me the biggest feeling word that jumps up when you think of the notion of your mother owning you. You've been spending your whole life chasing her approval, and it ain't never going to come. But the notion that she owns you, can you tell me the feeling word?
I don't know if this is a feeling word, but I guess it is anger. I'm pissed because I feel like my whole entire life has not been my life. And now I'm 46 and I'm trying to find my life and do what I want to do. Even I didn't want to do firefighting, police work. I did all that stuff for someone else. That wasn't for me.
And when you say someone else, who the fuck are we talking about?
Well, probably partially my dad too, right, because that's
exactly.
What he
Work
did.
hard. Right. And yet one of the things I talk about in my book is, the path to discovering who we are requires discovering who we're not. Mm-hmm. And then having the courage to excise, to cut out those things that I am not. And yet you're showing reluctance to cut out something or radically cut back something that you don't want in your life. In other words, what you're fundamentally saying is, my feelings don't matter. I so want mom's approval. I so want mom's approval that I'll put my own needs aside of, what I really want to do in this situation. And I'll just keep her, and it'll make my sisters happy. It's about fucking everybody else still.
Yeah.
And so the question isn't what do I want, or it's what do I don't want.
Okay.
And do I have the courage to begin to say the fucking scariest word in your fucking life? That's the word no.
Yep.
Saying the word no, because then somebody may not like me or what have you. Is any of this resonating at all?
You're absolutely right.
That's
hard for me.
And what's the hardest or scariest part about it?
I'm afraid to lose people because I feel like
If
don't
you
have many people in my circle,
right,
so I'm trying to
but if
hold on to anybody I can.
Oh yeah, and I mean, think about what Bridget just said. And Bridget, I'm coming over to you in a second, coming in hot. And think about what Bridget just said. This if you're angry that her daughter left her.
Yeah.
And so now she feels very alone and so on. And so let me ask you this. What goes on? What is the message that rises up inside of you? What do you start to think? What do you start to feel at the thought of losing someone? What are the feelings or the messages that you get about yourself that come
That
roaring?
I'm not worthy.
See,
to them.
somebody
That's
just left me.
100%.
Somebody just left me. See, I'm
It's
no
happened.
good.
Yes.
That's it. That's
Yeah.
right. That's right. And so
Scares me to death.
Oh, of course it does. You're terrified to be yourself because what if it comes at the cost of losing others? Mm-hmm. And because that's the message, then those messages up inside, they come roaring up inside. So that means those messages are keeping you locked in a motherfucking prison. And presumably the one person that has the key to unlock it, or the two people that have the key to unlock that prison, to make you feel like you do have worth and to take away all those messages, you're not worthy and you're not good enough and you're a fucking disappointment and all that shit. The two people that have the power to take that away obviously ain't giving it. Mm-hmm. And you've been trying to live your whole life just trying to get that approval, because then it would fill that fucking hole inside. Then you could be you rather than spending your life contorting and bending, trying to get them to like you.
Yep.
Scary saying no. Bridget, I want to ask, what's going on inside of you right now, Bridget? You've been in the hot seat, all right? And we've taken you down to some deep shit here. What's going on inside of you, Bridget?
I'm feeling dread.
Dread of what?
My feelings.
Really? And what do you think the biggest feeling is that you most dread feeling?
I think disappointment in myself.
Over what?
That it was a failure.
What do you mean? When?
I mean, if I was using her to fill a need in myself, then I failed as a parent.
Well, it doesn't necessarily mean you failed as a parent, because if I'm really honest, all parents do it. Doesn't make it right. Doesn't make it right. But we all do it. And so then it's a matter of degrees. And if we're really being honest, and I got to be honest with you, Bridget, for a woman who's pushed down feelings her whole life, you having the courage to admit that shit, that's some ballsy shit right there. I mean that. That's some ballsy shit. Okay? For a mother, for a father, for a mother to think about, criminy, did I fail my daughter? What makes you think that, or what makes you feel that? And the stuff we've talked about, what's the biggest thing that jumps out at you that makes you wonder, did I fail my daughter? What's the biggest thing that makes you wonder that?
I remember being 12 myself and think when she was born, when my sister was born, my youngest sister, and thinking I'm going to show her all the love that I did get.
Well, okay. That seems like a good thing. So keep going.
So I'm thinking that I poured that into my daughter, and it still ended up this way.
Let me ask you this question. And so it feels like I really failed. I tried to pour as much love in as I could, and she passed away, and and all her pain, and I'm alone now and so forth. Let me ask you, I'm going to show her all the love that I didn't get. Then what? That if I pour all the love into her that I didn't get, then what?
Then she would feel like a whole person.
And what would you feel like knowing you had done that?
That I'd done my job.
Okay. How old were you when you had your daughter?
28.
Okay. And did you think that, and just going back now, we're all older now, but back when you were 28, when we're 28, we're young, we're naive, all those things. What do you think was going on inside of that 28-year-old who had never gotten love and attention as a kid? And I'm going to pour all the love into this kid this child so that they'll never know the absence of love that I experienced. And then this child will feel loved and I will feel like what? Because the 28-year-old, there's something deeper than I did my job. That's a little sort of like, hey, boss, did my job today. No, what was going on inside of that 28-year-old? If she could just love this child the way she wasn't, then the 28-year-old, will feel what? Feeling
I don't know if I was that deep then.
But that's fair. You weren't that deep then, but is it possible something was going on inside of you? It was more than just doing the job because you chose this high goal. So you thought about this shit. You're like, I'm going to fucking nail it. I'm going to do it right. I'm going to give this kid so much love. So that what? Well, yes, so that the child will feel love. Sure, fine. But then what did you hope to feel? What did you hope to happen? What would that say about you as a person, as a mom, if you could love this child the way you weren't loved?
To make her feel like she mattered.
Make her feel like she mattered. And then if you could just make a child feel like the child mattered, would it give you a feeling like maybe you'd done something right and maybe you mattered?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Because my marriage was doomed from the start.
Let me ask you this. Yeah, and especially if he was a child molester, it was definitely fucking doomed from the start. Let me ask you this. Did you ever have the thought of when you were younger, and, we have lots of thoughts when we're kids and teens and 20s and so on and so forth. Did you ever have the thought, I'm going to be a better mother than my mom?
Oh, yeah, probably. Yeah. My mom came from a really bad background. She was a foster kid her whole life.
Okay. And just out of curiosity, how is that pertinent to this conversation?
Because she wasn't shown any love.
She wasn't shown any love. But why are you bringing that up when we're talking about you?
Because it plays into it. Because I built on top of her. I built mine on top of what she did.
And what does that mean?
My parenting. I took what she had and built on top of it.
And when you say that, say a little more with different words. What I built on, what does that mean?
I added to it. I took what she gave and added to it.
Okay. Then I'll ask you the question I asked Taya. What percent of your mother's parenting did you deliberately use in the parenting of your own daughter?
I don't know.
Because you just said, I'm going to show her the love I didn't get. I'm going to show her that she matters because I was showing that I wasn't matter. So I got to ask the question, how much of mom's parenting could have been any fucking good if you didn't even know you were loved and you didn't even know as a little girl and as a teenager and as a 28-year-old and as a 40-year-old and a 50-year-old, you didn't even fucking know you're loved. So how much of your mom's parenting did you actually deliberately use in the parenting of your own child? Roll the dice, put it out there. What percent of mom's parenting did you actually deliberately use in the parenting of your own child?
30.
30%. And might that be a nice answer? Might you be giving mom a little bit of the benefit of the doubt there, or are you being extra hard on mom there?
No, probably benefit of the doubt.
Okay, then give me the raw answer, just like I pushed Taya.
15.
You're kind of just sort of maybe 15. What's the real answer? Is it 15 or is it something, or is it 18 or is it 7? Or
16.
Okay, fair enough. Fair enough.
She did bring what she had. Yeah.
Okay, 16%. Mom was 16% a good parent, and I built on that. And so mom, then would it be safe to say mom was a horseshit parent? If you only used 16% of her parenting in the parenting of your own child, that means 84% of her parenting, give or take, 84% wasn't worth a shit, wasn't worth using because you didn't use it. You said, I built on what she gave me. So it was a deliberate effort to build on what she gave me. And that was only about 16 fucking percent, which is a bad tip at any restaurant. So is it reasonable to say mom was a bad parent?
She wasn't what I would have chosen.
Whoa, isn't that fascinating? You hesitate. You didn't give me a clear no, she was a bad, or a clear yes, she was a bad parent. You didn't give me that. It's almost as if, you literally, let me ask you this, Bridget. You've been around people your whole life, your church or your grocery store, and you've seen parents and kids your whole life, right? And, your kid growing in school. And when you look at other families, just in general, what, as you see it, and there's no right or wrong answer, everybody answers differently. What percent does a parent have to be, in your estimation? I would answer one way, Rob would answer differently, everybody gets to answer differently. What's the threshold? What percent does a parent have to be a good parent in order for you personally to consider them pretty much overall a good parent? What's the number? Is it, no parent is 100% a good parent all the time. So would it be like, I don't know, 90, or would it be 50, or it be 63? Or what's the number for you personally where they got to hit that number in order for you to generally consider them a good parent?
I've never put a number to it.
Come on, use that big brain of yours, Bridget.
65 would be good.
65%. All right. Well, just running the math off the top of my head, 16% of your mom's parenting that you used, you multiply that by 4, and that equals almost 65%. In other words, your mom was not even 1/4 of the number necessary to be considered a good parent in your own views. Okay. In my own views, the number is 65%. Mom was 16%. So you are saying not only was mom not a good parent, she was about as low as you can get for being a bad parent. And yet, earlier when I asked you if your mom was a bad parent, you hesitated. And you didn't give me a definitive yes or no. You sort of gave a few other words. And I'm just curious, why are you reluctant to just say what it is? And what I'm also wondering is, and then my brain goes to, wasn't it interesting earlier when we start talking about you and your childhood and so forth, and you mentioned, well, my mom had it bad. And I'm wondering, what the fuck does that have to do with anything? I'm trying to heal you, and you're making excuses for your mom. And when I ask you if your mom is a bad parent, you say, well, no. And I'm like, whoa, you don't want to say it. I would offer, isn't it interesting that you're still protecting your mother, or you don't want to touch the truth because it's too fucking painful to look at, much less feel? Which of those seems more accurate? That I don't want to touch it, or that I'm still protecting my mom?
Probably still protecting her.
Oh, isn't that interesting?
I mean, I kind of know. I mean, I gave her a 16.
Yeah, right. You do kind of know. It's not, you don't just kind of know. You definitively know. Mom was shit. All right. And as a parent goes, it's like, I mean, if it's that bad, come on. I mean, if she had been 50%, all right, well, maybe she's in the ballpark a bit, but it's like, no, Ma, you ain't even in the ballpark. Right. And she didn't give you love. And she didn't give you attention, and you didn't feel seen. And so what I'm wondering is, you're 28. What might have been going on deep down inside of that 28-year-old? Is it possible I'm going to give this kid all the love, and they're going to feel so loved, and I'm going to be a better parent than mom? And might there have been I'm going to show you. I'll show you, Mom. Or maybe even a fuck you, Mom. Is it possible? Or would that not have driven you at all? In other words, did you have the desire to get your mom's approval through your parenting? That if I can show how good a parent I am, then she will give me love or see me?
I don't think so. I'll have to think about that, but I don't think so.
Okay, and then let me ask you this question.
Okay.
Is your mother still alive today?
No.
Okay, how long ago did she pass?
Almost 6 years.
Did you ever fear your mother growing up?
You mean like anger or something?
Fear.
Our house.
Did you fear?
Our house was like this.
Okay, fair enough.
There was no ups and there were no downs.
Fair enough. And what would you say was the biggest feeling that you felt towards your mother growing up?
Well, partially I don't remember.
Why do you think that is? You talked about remembering that, there wasn't, I didn't get the love and so on and so forth. Why do you think it is you don't remember?
It's a feeling. I feel that I did not get it.
And what do you feel what do you recall feeling towards your mother when you were growing up?
When I think back, I don't think I have any feelings.
And just out of curiosity, what do you think of that?
I think that's off.
And it's off because if it were on, what should it be in your brain?
I should have fluctuating feelings about it, I would think.
Some sort of feelings. What does it say that an adult child, doesn't have feelings regarding her mother during childhood, doesn't have any memory of any feelings of her own mother during childhood? For you personally, what does that say?
it just kind of fills in what I've been feeling all along.
Which
it's
is?
kind of like numb.
Right.
Yeah.
What I would offer, Bridget, is you've got so many fucking feelings inside of you. The reason people go numb to feelings is they've got so many fucking feelings inside of them, and it's so much that they have to stuff it all in that vault, and that vault door is 4 feet thick, and they keep that motherfucking door shut. I ain't touching any of that shit. Too much, too hot, too scary, too ugly. Would that be in the ballpark?
Yeah.
Right on.
I am good at compartmentalizing stuff.
I hear you. And the truth is, right, and the truth is that's the stuff that causes us to have addictions. That's the stuff we want to just numb ourselves, or we want to stay busy, or the booze or the bottle or the pills or the food or the overworking, over-parenting, over-exercising, over-swiping and scrolling, or anything to make all that pain go away. But what's funny then, does that sound somewhat accurate? That using, you know,
yeah.
Okay, what's funny is anything to make that pain go away, to numb myself from that pain, which says then the vault's not working. Because if I'm feeling that pain, and I got to numb myself, well, that I thought the vault was supposed to keep me from feeling that stuff. Oh, shit. There's a fucking hole under the fucking door. It's slipping out from under the door, and it's sucking the motherfucking life out of me. And so I got to do all this shit. And at some point we realize, maybe I am so sick of living with this shit every day. Maybe at some point what I need to do, scary as it is, knees are trembling, pits are sweating, heart is beating, feel like I'm going to wet myself. But maybe I got to open that vault door and begin to go in there and pull out all those old files. And start pulling out all those old files of all the old memories and start going through them and feeling the feelings and flushing out all the feelings. Oh, that one, my 6th grade boyfriend, and all those feelings of disappointment there, and my fucking asshole best friend, and how she left me alone and she was such a jerk. All these things that at some point you got a choice. And the choice is, it's going to undermine your life. You've already seen that. I'm numb, but those feelings keep coming out, and I keep anesthetizing myself with whatever it might be. Or at some point I say, fuck this shit. I got to go in there. And that's what therapists are for. That's what, my books and all this stuff is for. But it requires the courage to begin flushing it out. It's not just a matter of feeling the feelings, but beginning to flush it out using those tools. But we also, the age is a part of it. Well, shit, is it worth it at my age? Let me ask you, I'm 57. How old are you? Can I ask?
67.
67. All right. Does it for you at this age feel like, fuck it, I'm too old, I don't want to do that shit?
I don't feel like I'm 67.
Good for you. Have you read my book, just out of curiosity?
No, but it's in my Amazon cart.
And I got about 4 older brothers that say, it's just Sven. Don't take it out of your Amazon cart. Trust me, lady, he's got nothing to say. All right. But no, it's scary. It's scary. The vault, the stuff inside the vault is scary. Taya, when you're hearing me talking with Bridget and we're talking about the vault and we're talking about lockdown feelings, what gets conjured up inside of you? What are you thinking? What are you feeling? What's going on inside of you, young lady?
100%. I stay so busy. Like, I was having nightmares from PTSD from stuff, and I would stay up all night and I would try to drink caffeine, which I don't drink. And I did that for over a month, where I was getting broken 4 hours of sleep, not eating, just staying busy. I could not be quiet with myself. And again, kind of felt the numb, like she was talking about.
Right. And the interesting thing about your career as a firefighter, a paramedic, a SWAT negotiator, all this stuff, I mean, you're a badass by anybody's standards. You really are. And I respect the hell out of you for it. And thanks for everything you do. But in a way, that's a shell. It's an armor. It's a show from all the goo that you feel inside. Yeah. Let me ask you this, Taya. What do you think it's going to take for you to finally open the fucking vault and go inside?
Well, I think the universe has done that to me with all this crap I'm going through right now, with the being suspended stuff, and now knowing I'm getting out of police work. But in a way, that's forcing me to be like, what do you want to do? I would never have done that on my own.
Right.
I was miserable, and I would never have left.
So then what you're fundamentally saying by saying the universe has done this for me, basically, is you're saying this destruction of my life as I know it as I knew it, this destruction has been good. That the destruction is fundamentally leading to, and I tell clients this all the time, it's written in my book, creation is invariably preceded by destruction. Old things must die, old forms must die, but that still doesn't answer the question. What you might do with your life is one thing, but the question is, what are you going to do about the fucking vault, Taya?
Well, reading your book and journaling is helping. I'm trying to go through it. It's just hard to, sometimes I am not sure what I need to filter or how to filter through it. And I'm trying by journaling. Sure. My therapist asked me a question one time, like, what would you say to the 17-year-old girl now that you're 46? And I literally almost started bawling. And I was like, I had to stop a second. I was like, I don't even want to go there. I can't even think about that right now.
Whoa. And God bless your therapist. Great question. But the bottom line is, so you ran. I can't go
I totally
there.
ran.
Right. And so what I'm saying is you are fundamentally, let me ask you this. If you felt all those feelings and allowed them all to come up, what do you most fear happening?
I guess I just haven't been emotional in so long that I don't know how to do it or what it's going to feel.
Doesn't answer the question. Doesn't answer the question. What do you most fear happening? That's all right. You're doing fine. What do you most fear happening if you go into all those fucking feelings and allow them to come rather than run or shut down?
That I have to face them. I don't want to face those fears.
And what do you fear happening if you face them?
I don't know. I don't think anything's going to happen, but I think I have to deal with, I'm afraid of dealing with, I'm afraid of my own.
If you're right, if I deal with it, I'm afraid of my own what?
I don't know. I don't know who I am. I'm afraid of, I guess I'm still trying to figure out,
Sure, you are trying to figure out who you are, but I'm saying, no, you're doing great. You're doing great. Let me ask you this. Is it that I fear feeling all of it, that it's all these scary big things, and I fear all those feelings because I fear like it'd be so fucking overwhelming?
Oh, yeah, no doubt. Because even that little bit, I was like afraid I was running from.
Right. And so what you're and so let me ask you this. If you felt all of those feelings or began to feel them and they went and you're doing your journaling and you're writing letters to your mom telling her to fuck off and I love you and I miss you, but go fuck yourself, you old bitch, or whatever, all the feelings, flushing out all your feelings and towards your dad and towards, whatever, and your rapist and all those things. If you were doing that, let me ask you this, and all those feelings are there, would you take the rope back out into the woods and kill yourself again? If you're feeling all those feelings and you're doing the work of flushing out, but you're feeling all these feelings, would you kill yourself?
No, I don't think that
Why? Why wouldn't you kill yourself? You got this thing that you're so fucking afraid of, a vault full of feelings. You're going in, you're letting this shit out and you're feeling overwhelmed. Why wouldn't you kill yourself? I want to know. Why?
Because I think I was more afraid of what everybody else thought than
But I'm talking about this.
Myself.
I'm not talking about the suicide back then. I'm talking about now. If you're going into the vault and letting these feelings out and choosing it, and you're feeling all these big, ugly, scary, mangled, tangled, hairy feelings, and you're up in it, why wouldn't you kill yourself? You just said you wouldn't.
I think I know deep down that I'm a good person and that to myself, I'm worth it.
Okay, so you are fundamentally saying that if I went into the vault, if I went into all these feelings, if my therapist prompted me and I stayed the fucking in it, I'm just going to fucking grab myself by the balls and squeeze and I'm going to stay in it, right? And I'm going to stay in it. And all these big feelings, I wouldn't kill myself because, if I'm hearing you correctly, because in the end, what? I love myself, so I guess you'll be okay?
I think so. I think the thing I'm most afraid of is I have nightmares so bad sometimes that I literally wake up like sweating and like I can feel everything and it's like legit and I don't want, I'm trying to get away from that.
No. It's going into it and getting a fucking piece of paper and a pen and flushing all this shit out. But what I'm getting at is this, is that if you wouldn't kill yourself, then what you're saying is fundamentally, I want to live. So fundamentally, in the end, if I want to live and not kill myself, what you're saying is fundamentally, even if I feel all these feelings, somehow I'll be okay.
Yes.
Right. So even if I let all this stuff out, I'll be okay. It'll be hard, and I'll have to do all this ugly work, and it'll be painful and scary and all these things. But in the end, if you're not going to eat the bullet or put the neck around, throw it over the tree and then around your neck, then you're saying, I choose to live. Your desire to live exceeds your fear of what's in the vault. And you believe somehow I'll figure it out. Somehow I'll be okay if I go in there. Fundamentally, your trust that I'll be okay has to exceed your fear of feeling all those things. And if it does, which it sounds like you've just conceded, then all of a sudden, okay, I'm ready. Because you got to go into that fucking vault. You're dying. You've been dying for 43 years, and it's time to go into the vault and do the fucking work. Yeah, it's scary. It is scary, and all the shit inside is ugly. But here's the thing: it doesn't have to take forever. It doesn't have to take forever. And the more you go in, and the more you begin to attack this stuff and go in deeper, and just do the work. You got to do the flushing. It's not just bring up the thoughts and thinking it and feeling it. That's not enough. It has to have words, which means you have to have the balls to name the shit. You have to have the courage to name your mom. And I'm talking to you here too, Bridget. You have to have the courage to name what your mom did, to name what your dad did, to give yourself courage to words. You guys have to stop protecting the people that cause this shit. Stop protecting. And so I want to begin to sort of bring us in for a landing here. And I'm going to come back to you, Taya, but I want to ask you, Bridget, what's going on inside you? What are you thinking? What are you feeling?
This word just popped up, and I was thinking grace.
And what about grace?
I mean, I understand the feelings. Oh, I totally understand the feelings bubbling up since it's been happening within the last year and a half. And they do scare me. I guess I'm thinking grace because I'm thinking, I understand about thinking my parents did a horrible job, but where does grace come into the picture?
Grace comes into the picture. That is the question. I love that question so much. Isn't it fascinating? Yeah, I didn't know my parents did a horrible job, but where does grace come into the picture? In other words, what you're fundamentally saying is, shouldn't I extend grace to my parents? Because they had, right. Is that roughly what you're saying? Roughly?
Yeah, more or less. And for myself too. Yeah.
Well, but isn't it fascinating you added on yourself at the end? Isn't it fascinating that yet again you jumped to the defense of your mother? You jumped to the defense of your father. I should extend them grace. Let me ask you this. We stirred up that you may be feeling guilty over, having used your daughter for your shit. Is it possible that you feel you don't want to call out your mother and your father on what they did, because then that would make you even more guilty, or you would feel more guilty for what you did and didn't do to your daughter? That, I'm maybe that's not it at all.
I think I'm feeling that I had a different childhood than my siblings.
Okay.
And they don't remember it the way that I don't remember.
So what does that have to do with this? Does that negate the fact that you had the childhood you had?
No, it doesn't. But when I bring stuff up, they're just kind of like, they're more la-la than I am.
Okay. So then it seems to me the solution there is don't bring it up to them. Because them bringing their opinions on it almost seems to cause your brain to negate the experiences that you had, right? So sometimes we got to protect our truth and be judicious in who we share it with. But what I would really encourage you to do is to, it's almost as though you want to race to grace. You want to give it, you can forgive your parents. You can, and I know you're a Christian or we're a Christian, whatever. And, Jesus' message of forgive, 70 times 7, whatever. And that's great. But Jesus never said, and I'm a former clergyman, right? A Lutheran pastor. Jesus never, ever, ever said, you must forgive right now. He never put a time imperative on it. So all I say is, why don't you give some grace to that little girl who was so fucking alone and whose heart was screaming, please just love me. I'll do anything. Please be nice to me. Please, mommy. Please, daddy. Can I just have some? Please, I'll do anything. Why don't you give her some grace and let her get her feelings out? Just honor her feelings. You can forgive mom and dad later. Why not just call out what the actual truth of your experience is? And I'm talking to you too, Taya. Why not for once in your life have the courage to just look at what the truth is, state what the truth is, allow the feelings out? You want to know why you want to allow the feelings out? Let me tell you why. Because that little 5-year-old girl, that little 7-year-old girl, that little 17-year-old girl, that little whatever that you were, she had all those feelings that she couldn't get out. And so it wasn't safe, and her feelings weren't wanted. And so she stuffed all of those feelings like little receipts, little chits. She stuffed them into a cigar box, those old wooden cigar boxes. They still have them, right? And she wrapped it up in duct tape when it got full, and then she got another cigar box and all her feelings. So what that means is what's really in that vault is that 5-year-old girls, that 12-year-old girls, that 21-year-old girls, all of her feelings. What that means is those feelings were her authentic responses to how she was being treated. Feelings are just a natural response to stimuli, to stimulus, right? So those are her authentic feelings. Your authentic self is in all those fucking boxes in the vault. Your authentic self is in there, and you are scared of all the things that little girl felt. And so by you, and I'm talking to both of you now, Taya and Bridget, by you keeping all those in there and that vault door closed, you are fundamentally saying to your 5-year-old self, I don't care. I'm going to protect myself, little girl, at the expense of your feelings. Now you, knowingly, now that you know it, up till now you didn't know it, but now you know it. Now it's you violating that 5-year-old girl. Now it's you saying, your feelings don't matter enough for me to toughen the fuck up and heal you. And you have the power. She's coming to you now with that box of those cigar boxes of feelings, and the 8-year-old you is behind her, and the 18-year-old you is behind her. And she's saying, please open the box. These are all my feelings, and it wasn't safe, and I just wanted somebody to listen. I just wanted somebody to hear. Will you please listen? Will you please hear? Will you please see what my feelings are? And she's crying, and she's looking at you. She's saying, you're stronger than I am. I wasn't strong enough. I'm so ashamed. And if you don't open that box, you're saying, you don't matter, little girl. And she's saying, but you're big. You're strong. And you're saying, no, I'm too scared. Sorry, little girl, you don't matter. You have a choice. And you offer her, you have the power to give her the gift, the grace, to set her free. And she offers you a gift. And what's the gift? To introduce you to your authentic self. Because all those boxes were your authentic responses. You want to know who you really are? Open one of those cigar boxes. Just one. And that little girl is trying to show you who she really is, because that inner child, that's you. All right. Before we wrap it up here, I'm going to ask each one of you one last question, and that is, it's this, actually 1.5 questions. And the question is, what's your one last question for me? Bridget, what's your last question? Do you have a question for me before we go? Anything. Be anything you want.
Okay, I'm thinking that, okay, what do I do now? What is the next step? I understand the cigar boxes,
right?
But that's metaphor. I mean, what do I do?
Now what you physically do is you buy the book, and the book will step you through the process. Or you know what? Don't even buy my book. I have over 1,000 free videos, and you go in and you start watching them and use every one of those as a prompt for your journaling. You get a pad of paper. I don't get any royalties for you buying a pad of paper and a pen. I get nothing. There's 1,000 free videos, and you use every video and every podcast that I've ever made, and you use it as a prompt in your journaling. Or you start just journaling on what you are feeling right now. Once we get off the air here, you just start journaling. Or you start with a letter to your mom that you never send, or to your dad that you never send, and you flush out there what's going on. And you may end up writing 100 more letters, but you start by putting words to what you're feeling or what your memories are. You start. You just start. And it may feel big and it may feel daunting, but there are tools there to begin to get that stuff out of you. And the more you do it, you're going to begin to feel a little bit lighter and a little bit lighter, but you got to have the courage to do it. And Taya, question for me, or what are you feeling?
We're talking about that little girl's cigar box.
Mm-hmm.
And putting it back on me now to go there, it hit me for sure. So my question is, if I start going into all the cigar boxes for my kid and from all the traumas I've seen through work and all the traumas that I've been through, will that help me be able to function more as a human through the PTSD stuff? Because that's where I'm struggling now.
The PTSD from work and from this, it's the icing on top of a cake. Your problems started, your biggest problems are back when you were 4.
Yeah.
And 14 and 17 and you were raped. Mm-hmm. All the responses. what you will find, it's precisely as I was mentioning a minute ago to Bridget, the more you start to flush that out, what you're fundamentally doing is you have a cup right now, and your cup, your love cup, has so much crud and rocks and manure packed in there, and there's a hole in the bottom, but that's all that crud is so encrusted, it doesn't go out the bottom. But any love that gets poured in somehow finds its way right down to the bottom and flushes right out. So what you're fundamentally doing is you're going in, by doing this work, you're getting that crud out of there, which means the cup is emptying of all the pain that's been inside of you the whole time, including the PTSD. The PTSD, that's just, having worked with first responders and military and war vets and all that for years, the shit in your furthest past in your childhood is far scarier than the PTSD. Because think about it, you've been keeping that shit down for a hell of a lot longer. You have PTSD from the rape. You have PTSD from your own fucking childhood. And the way we heal it is by going into it. Yes, it will. You will begin to feel differently. And the more you get that crud out of you, you know what? The more room there is for love to be in there and to pool and to swell up in front of you. But isn't it fascinating? Let me just ask one final question of the two of you, and it's simply this. Taya, any last words for Bridget? Bridget, any last words for Taya? Go ahead, Taya.
Like you were talking about grace, give yourself the grace and definitely go in. You got a journal. I'm telling you, I've been journaling. I've almost finished with Sven's book. I'm going to get more books, and the journaling is well worth it.
What's the effect of the journaling? What have you felt?
Oh, I've learned stuff. I'm starting to, like you said, put words to the feelings and to the stuff that I didn't before. Even when it comes to my mother, we were talking about.
But do you feel the effects? Do you actually feel something from the journaling?
Yeah, no, I do. Yeah, no, I do feel lighter than I did.
Oh, so you just answered your own fucking question from 2 minutes ago.
But I'm still having my nightmares.
Fair enough.
That's why I didn't know.
So final thoughts then for Bridget. She's got to go into it and journal it, you're saying?
Oh, yeah. Yes, definitely.
And yes, Bridget, final thoughts for Taya? Or anything you want to say to Taya?
I guess I was thinking that that we're coming from totally two different perspectives. I mean,
yep,
we're dealing with the same thing.
Isn't that fascinating?
Yeah.
Isn't that fascinating?
Yep.
And similar pasts and the sexual crap, bullshit, and the not being seen, not feeling heard, not feeling validated. Isn't it fascinating? And if you two crossed each other on the street, you would never even recognize each other, never anything. And yet here we are. And you guys, when we drill way down to the shit, it's the exact same stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
And generations. Yeah.
Yep, yeah, exactly. I am so proud of both of you, and I thank you so much.
Thank you.
Rob, anything coming up on those who are watching the show live on YouTube?
A lot of random thoughts, but nothing that I can put into words.
Fair enough.
And it's been kind of grueling going through all this for everyone.
Right. It is grueling. And I appreciate, this is the longest episode we've ever taped. And Rob and I made a decision midway through the episode. We passed each other a note, and Rob said, hey, let's keep going. These women are really showing courage and really going into the stuff. And on behalf of literally listeners around the world, ladies, thank you so much for having the courage to open up. Some really ugly stuff, hard stuff to discuss. And just for the record, for anyone, if you're thinking about therapy, do it. But especially consider getting into a group. Groups can be so powerful to hear each other's stories. It gives us courage to open up a little bit more and to console each other. We sort of had a little group here. We had a little group of two, and Sven sort of, the mouse on the floor. I'm really proud of you, and I'm really grateful to both of you. Thank you so much, ladies, for being on this show.
Thank you.
And to all of our listeners around the world, thank you so much for tuning in. I think we are all so grateful. On behalf of my team, Rob the Rocket and KC in the booth, have a kick-ass day.
The Badass Counseling Show is strictly copyrighted. No copies may be made without the express written consent of the Badass Counseling Show, LLC. The Badass Counseling Show is produced by Karen Camparelli and Robert H. Friedman. Executive producer Sven Erlandson. Original music by two-time Emmy Award-winning composer Trevor Morris. Have a kick-ass day.